And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Reflections of Gaia, a unofficial anime podcast. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, I have my good brother here in the temple, the four-letter man with only one letter said, good brother A.
Hello.
So we are at the grand finale of our little adventure. As we've gone through the world of Gaia, then the games that inhabit it, and now wrapping up with the video games, which some of the stuff we covered early on in this was always part of the plan. The video games were not. This was something that happened a bit later. Though, given the inspirations for anime, attempting to break into video games was inevitable. Though, outside of D&D, the pipeline between TTRPG and video game isn't that full. Like, how many games you can think of that started as a tabletop and then got a video game adaptation?
As a tabletop RPG or just in general?
They started as a tabletop RPG, and then later on they got a video game adaptation.
You have Shadowrun. I know, the Hexadrome, Aristia is getting a video game adaptation sometime this year.
Mm-hmm. L5R, it had that action roguelike. Obviously Pathfinder and Cyberpunk. I know it would be tempting for some to count BattleTech. I'm not.
It's more like it was more of a war game.
Yeah.
And then turned into a video game.
And there was the MechWarrior TTRPG, but I'd rather not go back to that anytime soon.
I know Starfinder is going to be getting a video game soon.
Mm-hmm. And
like it's not
sparse, but there's not a whole lot.
Do you want? Should we put in Rogue Trader and Dark Heresy in there, or just lump them in with the whole 40K thing?
I'm not counting the 40K thing for reasons of, one, started as a war game, and two, Rogue Trader is taking some cues from the FFG TTRPG, but that was building on Warhammer Fantasy. And by that point, there had already been plenty of Warhammer video games as is.
Mm-hmm.
Both 40K and fantasy. Also, RuneQuest recently with RuneQuest Warlords.
Oh yeah.
But that's not to say stuff in TTRPGs doesn't make it to video games. It's just it ends up happening indirectly rather than a direct adaptation.
Like typically war games have a higher chance of being like turned into a video game than tabletop RPGs.
Mm-hmm. I think it has to do with the scale. It's pretty easy to do like a tactics game or an RTS with a war game. But with an RPG, that requires a lot more content.
It could also be like the amount of money that the studio can put into.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically, depending on the war game, you're putting like a army costs anywhere from $200 to $500, unless we're talking about 40K, and then at that point, even a small army would nearly be $1,000.
Yeah.
So So uh, like those IP holders have enough cash to throw at a game studio, be like, hey, here's our setting, make us a game.
Hmm. So it is always nice when games that are more on the indie side of the equation get this kind of attention. And with some TTRPGs, it's almost written in stone to do it. I do recall at one point there was talk of, oh, and how could I forget Vampire the Masquerade, um,
Oh yeah.
which has had I mean, yeah, we had there was Redemption, then there was Bloodlines. Everybody forgets Redemption, but Redemption wasn't that great anyways. Uh, then there's
People only
those.
remember People only typically remember when something's good, not not if it exists or not.
Mhm. And of course, there was also Hunter. There was rumor at one point that the team behind Hunter the Reckoning was going to be working on an Exalted game. That never came to pass. Though truth be told, if anybody's going to be doing Exalted, it should be any studio that has a background in character action games.
I'm trying to remember. I know they had a werewolf game, and didn't they recently announce another hunter game?
Yeah, the werewolf game, Earthblood, was shit. Uh, Not as bad as Bloodlines 2, but still bad. And now the team behind RoboCop is doing Hunter. And we all found out by accident because of an update that wasn't supposed to go out.
that that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, it was it was kind of funny, but also kind of embarrassing because I'm pretty sure they wanted to announce the game at Gamescom or something, not announce it through that. But the point is that tabletop to video game as a pipeline is significantly uncommon than compared to the other way around. I mean, you flip the table on that, you've got plenty of examples there. I've got no shortage of examples from across tabletop history. Contrary to popular belief, this isn't a new phenomenon.
I mean, how many of those were good though?
Um, Honestly, it depends.
Like
It
I heard like the Diablo TTRPG was definitely interesting.
There was never a full-on Diablo TTRPG, at least not yet. There is one that's in the works, by Glass Cannon Unplugged,
Oh,
along with a board game, which is what they normally do. The closest thing that we got to Diablo in TTRPG form, aside from the in all but name entries, were a couple modules for D&D.
that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. Which they worked all right, but at the end of the day, they're still D&D modules.
What edition was that? Was it second or third?
There was one in third. I could swear up and down there was one for AD&D, but I cannot find it.
Mm.
Oh, never mind. So there was there was the one I'm thinking of was for Diablo 2, and that came out in 2000. Uh, there were there is obviously the one that's built on Diablo 4 that's in the works. And the modules that I'm thinking of, uh, were things like the Bloodstone Tomb. Uh, there were a few of them: the Bloodstone Tomb, the Awakening, Diablerie, to Hell and Back, and a downloadable one called the Secret Cow level.
Man, you know, of all the all the meme Easter eggs, the secret cow level is probably in my top 10.
Mm-hmm. But at first I had thought, okay, this is using the uh, the third the third edition rules. But from what I saw of it, nah, not really.
Is it using fourth edition, or did they kind of
No,
just
no, not fourth. This came out in 2000.
okay?
So no, it looks like it was just a simplified version of the 3E rule set. Uh, what is absolutely hilarious to me is that you probably have more diversity of character build in this than you did in proper D&D, especially if you played a martial. We all know D&D does not like anybody who isn't a mage, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, when it comes to Anima's entries, there have been 2 so far, with 1 more in the works. The first of these, Arc of Sinners, you can't get anymore unless you use Dolphin, because it was a WiiWare exclusive. I've heard that there was a mobile gaming port called Advance, but since it's mobile gaming, I'm not touching it. Um, as somebody who did play through it a bit and did attempt to revisit it in preparation for this episode, Arc of Sinners, it being a Metroidvania-like game, is a natural fit, admittedly, but it is not good. It was also around that time that there seemed to be a real push to have its main character, Cecilia, be sort of a mascot character for Anima, but it didn't last.
She's not. You know, I like at one point I could see, like I can't. Words. I could see why she's definitely not a brand safe character.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have made remarks about the outfit, but as a fan of anime, I've been hearing variations of that shit since day one, of people hemming and hawing about um about the art design. Especially when the Something Awful crew decided to take their shots.
I mean, it's something awful. You might as well just ignore what they're saying.
Mm-hmm. But on the on the other on the other hand, uh, I think the reason why Cecilia didn't last is because there's a bit of a bottleneck to the kind of stories you can tell with her. Like, her whole thing was being a Celine assassin on the run. Which, yeah, that's certainly a story that you can tell, but there's only so many things you can do with that kind of character. And it has to involve Celine in some form, directly or indirectly. That's why I say there was a bit of a bottleneck.
Yeah.
I suppose if I were to just use a parallel when it comes to this sort of bottleneck thing, uh, consider the the issue that Werewolf the Apocalypse has. How everything has to tie back to the worm in some way.
Yeah. It's hard to go and tell stories if you only have like one big bad evil guy. That's either directly or indirectly causing all these issues.
Mm-hmm. It's the Moriarty problem.
Yeah.
Like, you might think that you're having someone be this massive, um, evil mastermind when you have so many things tied back to them, but what you end up doing is bottlenecking the story. And of course, the other problem was, I'm not sure what studio was contacted to do Ark of Sinners, but this was either an issue of the way the gameplay worked on the Wii, or the studio being involved. But if I'm being honest, there was there were there were a few hidden gems on the WiiWare. There was a lot of games that would be better served on the Ouya. Just
I wouldn't be
slightly
surprised
jumped
that
up
some of
mobile
those
games.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that some of those games did make its way to the Ouya.
Because when it comes to good games that were on the WiiWare platform, honestly, there's only two that really come to mind, and one of them is still in that jail, and the other one I think got out. The Castlevania Adventure port on the WiiWare was pretty good, and also Final Fantasy for the After Years, which was an attempt at trying to do an episodic affair, something that would be revisited in Dimensions, which, from what I saw just looking at it, I feel like Dimensions I should give a second look to, because it looked like there was actually an attempt, even if it was a mobile game.
I will say there's a lot of like the normal like the mid 2010s mobile game stereotype has kind of gotten has gone away a little bit. It's like there are good mobile games out there. Like what is it? The Arknight's Enfield. That one's a pretty decent one, even though it's just a Genshin Impact clone.
From what I saw, and Enfield looks more like it's trying to do Hoyoverse meets Satisfactory.
Yeah. Like instead of having large open worlds like Genshin does, it has kind of more smaller maps that you can explore.
Which,
Unironically,
given the whole building thing that you're doing, makes sense. But
you only build in certain locations primarily. Then you have other buildings you can put down that you use to support like your main build plot.
Yeah, that is a very Satisfactory Cractorio kind of thing. But with Ark of Sinners, now one of the things that I did notice just going through the script and going through the monoliths is you do see some hints of elements that you're going to see later in Gate of Memories. One of them is this idea of an isolated area that's cut off from existence. In the case of the Ark, it's cut off from time, because the civilization there was trying to make a civilization that would last and be prosperous forever. Do have to wonder if someone was playing BioShock at the time. And
Maybe.
basically, you have this idea that they were messing around with chronomancy, and it backfired hard after they found an artifact called the Clock. And we have seen a clock attic. We have seen mention of a clock in Yggdrasil that is held in place when we were covering the hell part of um, Gaia. And there is a part of me that wonders if that arc is supposed to be the same arc that was mentioned that Ra had built during the events of the War of God.
That'd be an interesting revelation.
Mhm. It probably is. It probably isn't just because I was gonna say because the timeline doesn't match up. But the thing is, this is the arc that was in Arc of Sinners is a place that exists outside of time. But I do remember gameplay wise it was basic, but it was one of those cases that was clearly jank. I think the ambition of the studio and what they could and the ability did not match up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the reviews, the commonality that I saw was they had good intentions, but not good execution.
Yeah.
And I do want to see if it was contracted to a different studio or something else.
It could have just been the Wii itself, like having to work with its internal memory instead of a optical disc. I know a lot of the early PlayStation 3 games that were completely digital had similar issues until somebody figured out how to utilize the architecture without utilizing a disc reader.
Mm-hmm. Now, apparently somebody put it on the request list for GOG. And when I look at the reviews for it, um, obviously obviously it's trying to do a heavy amount of storytelling and trying to do style. And the there you haven't you have the you have the issue of AI that's far too punishing and movement that's way too laggy. There's also the issue of enemies seem far quicker than you.
Yeah, that kind of just feels like that kind of feels like the devs kind of ran out of time and had to ship what they had.
I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen. Now it is stated that it was published and developed under AGS, which probably means Carlos was overseeing it. So I think it was more of they didn't think that they could do a full-size game, so this was testing the waters. But obviously, sometime later we get Gate of Memories, which was kickstarted years and years ago. Now, of course, I'm talking about the original game came out in 2016. it was published by Badland Indie, and clearly was leaning far more into character action with a little bit more Metroidvania, as opposed to the more linear approach that Arc of Sinners was doing. Especially in the sense that the different areas, the different memories within it, you could you had a bit of freedom in terms of what order you could go with them in. Um, you have, and to be honest, even with the issues of voice acting, um, the bearer, the bearer, nameless, and ergo are much stronger characters. Whoever was voicing Ergo's whoever was doing Ergo's lines was having way too much fun. I mean, yes, it could be argued that he was just channeling Crispin Freeman doing Alucard. But if you're gonna steal from the best.
True.
And there were plenty of spots where I was like, was that something that was in the script, or did he just ad-lib that and they kept it? Especially that giant reading rainbow gag.
I mean, like I thought. I mean, I feel like for that gag, it was they just decided to keep it in.
Mm-hmm. But there is a much stronger use of some of the core mechanics, even though it's obviously modified to account for it being a action RPG. Like you have Xeon and Ki, but Ki is more like a stamina approach, which only really becomes a problem if you end up abusing dodges, and you are expected to dodge a lot. But when it came to getting the haunted gothic approach that Anima has, obviously Gate of Memories had a much bigger scale to work with. And is done in a way that I think if you're familiar with Anima and Gaia, you'd have more to go on. If not, you're not completely in the lost. Although when you really get down to a large amount of the story, pretty much everybody is some sort of tragedy. Especially the messengers at the end. Like, the puppet master was seeking perfection and lost his humanity in the process. When it came to the Nexus and the or not Nexus, Ramatek. Well, we don't get too much on him because you end up fighting the Nameless instead.
Mm-hmm.
Who is no joke in that. When it came to Jonathan the Fairy King, well, you're dealing with fairies and someone who isn't supposed to exist. And when it comes to Malekith, well, he's the Lord of Nightmares, and incidentally, Malekith was the most annoying of the ones to go with.
I mean, with a name like that, like you like he's either going to be a pushover, like a complete pushover, or he's going to be a pain.
They chose the pain route because he has ways of fucking about with your controls.
I mean, I know that's a reference to like the Psycho Mantis fight, but even then, that's like you don't see very many games do that.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm late. Net technical issues has been resolved.
Hey there, Hydra. Uh, I went over a bit of Ark of Sinners, though it's kind of hard to go over much because there isn't much to go on, and right now just discussing Gate of Memories. Um, I did bring up how I absolutely hated the fight against Malekith.
Yes, so did I. That was a real pain.
Uh, but I'd say the bigger pain wasn't any of the boss fights themselves, because the combat with Gate of Memories is actually pretty decent. Uh, a little repetitive at times, but nothing breaking. But I think the bigger issue that I had was platforming and puzzles. There are several of the puzzles that are very handbrakey, where you clearly needed some kind of guide in order to figure out what the hell you needed to do. A few others that were trial and error. A lot of ones that were of the time of the mid 2010s. And but the platforming thing is the bigger issue, and this is an issue that has cropped up quite a bit when it comes to character action games. As much as I like Devil May Cry, the worst part about it has always been platforming.
Action games and platformings aren't in exactly, shall we say, dead peanut butter and jelly. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any 3D platformer, especially early on. The earlier ones were really rough.
Mm-hmm.
Mario 64 works because it was built specifically for platforming first. Combat was just a distant second.
It's more the issue of precision. And the fact that you don't have the most accurate platforming, and you have to platform on these very small ledges. Especially those spots with the disappearing ones. That was a pain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, I remember going through that, and I do not miss those at all.
But obviously the big setup of we're bringing all these people together to have Ergo absorb their energies, so we have a monster we can control by having him be a channeler for Baal. Which, it's kind of funny that with both games you have individuals of an organization that are trying to exert control over something that cannot be controlled or should not. Like with Ark of Sinners, it was messing around with time magic. With Gate of Memories, it was messing around with a existential demon. A demon formed from humanity's memories. And when it came to getting the different endings, I think the funniest one was the one where you end up destroying the Byblos in the process and Romeo's brain just breaks. Oh, and just he keeps saying, "You what?" over and over and over again.
It's like, hey, you destroyed this really powerful artifact.
But I think the intent that was planned when it came to the bearer was to have someone who started out emotionless but gained an emotional state as it goes on. I do remember when I was covering just the demo and you hopped in, you had said that they had hoped that they did re-recordings of the voice acting. Which I knew was never going to be in the cards. I understand wanting it to be, but you work with what you got. However, I think even though it sounds like I'm saying Gate of Memories is some masterpiece, it was more a marked improvement and really feels like what a studio's first game should feel like. Almost like Arc of Sinners was an experiment. You know, you have a full story, you have multiple characters that you're working with. You have the fact that it is drawing upon a lot of characters from Gaia. And there was a heavy emphasis within Gate of Memories of, oh, a civil war is brewing, which is why we need a monster to unite everyone. First off, if you're thinking about uniting everyone, congratulations. You're being used by Imperium.
Not wrong.
Mm-hmm. You know, since that's what they've been trying to do since day one, and they keep failing at it. Not because they're incompetent, but because they didn't proper assess the situation. Well, except for the whole black metal thing. That was incompetence.
Yeah. They're like, hey, this would be a good idea. And since then, they've been trying to unfuck themselves.
And of course, the whole thing with Lucanor, which because of those old deals, they can't touch him. Remember, they agreed that the progeny of Zorn Giovanni was not to be touched. At least not by any of the powers in the shadow. And since they made that agreement with Ciel and Gaia, two individuals who vastly outstrip the powers. But I know some might say if something this world-ending was right under everyone's nose, why didn't anyone do anything about it instead of just sealing it? I think the idea was that was the only thing that they could do. Because there was a very strong implication during the War of God that they were unleashing horrors beyond comprehension. That Ra was unleashing pretty much every apocalyptic weapon that could ever exist. And a lot of those things could not be fully destroyed because they're either incapable of dying or were just too powerful, so all they could do was seal them. And you know, Ball was definitely one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
The question is we all know that this is effectively would have been just a doorway to another to the apocalyptic event in the future.
Oh, there's no shortage of apocalypses.
I mean, hey, it'd be a boring setting if they didn't have a gun, like a gun faced towards the head of the universe.
If it's going to be a gun, can I at the very least just say, might as well just be a boomstick?
No, we're not that lucky.
Nope.
A Hydra can always hope, though. Especially considering one of my kin got to beat up during that game anyway.
Mm-hmm. But all that being said, I think one of the other things that I think really helped both games stand out, oddly enough, is the soundtrack work. That sort of haunting orchestra that both games have certainly helps establish that identity. Although, if I go back and try and play the original, I'm going to end up running into some issues. Fortunately, that's what the remastered version addresses. And there was a guidebook for converting some of the characters from Gate of Memories into the RPG. It was supposed to be exclusive to backers, but somebody leaked it, and now it's all over the place.
I think I've made this comment before. It's like, don't expect, like, companies should go and realize, especially if it's for a PDF, that shit's just gonna get leaked. So you might as well just put it out in the public to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
making
it's
it
nice if you.
exclusive.
Yeah, I actually agree with the A here because, like, let's be frank, exclusives is nice and all, but if it's just a small stuff like this, they might as well just open it up to everyone right off the bat anyway.
Mm-hmm. It is kind of funny because I was sent the thing, and it is kind of funny what level certain monsters were given. Like, the baseline marionettes are level 3.
Huh.
The fire marionettes are level 2. Which makes sense. They are
What? On fire?
On fire, and they're meant to be basically suiciders. The memory guardians are level 5. The defense seals are level 2. When it comes to the different Noth, which get their own particular setup. And Xyler asked, did this universe try to do a Chrono Trigger with an evil time god? No. But Ophanim Noth are level 5, Principalities are level 10, and Potestas are level 14. Oddly enough, the Nexus Guardian is level 10. The Hydra Queen is level 7.
Okay.
The Golden Knight is level 6. The Streborg, those crystalline things in the forest, are level 5. The Basic Elemental is level 3. The Living Nightmare is level 6. And when it comes to the Nazgul puppets, they start out at level 2. With the prototype being at 7. Oddly enough, the Red Lady, the the caster you fight at the start, 9th level. But as far as the messengers, Malekith is level 16. Drauga is 14. Jonathan is 15. Nazgul is 13. The Nameless is 15. Baal's avatar is at 17. And so is Ergo Mundus when he's unsealed.
I think you made this comment before.
Mm-hmm.
Like giving giving levels doesn't tell you a lot about what a NPC or player is built like. Gives you a pretty wide area of how powerful or how weak a character could potentially be.
It all comes down to the text rather than just the raw number.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
The reason I bring up the level numbers specifically with Anima is the scaling. But if it would help, Ergo Mundus's LP total is 350. And is technically a warlock, while Nameless is a technician, which is... Now, Ergo being a warlock, that makes sense. Nameless being a technician... No, actually I can go with that. Him being a Tau wouldn't really fit. And a lot of the mooks are some variation of warrior, or in one case, assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Though at the tail end of that guide, they did give cards if you wanted to use them in tactics.
And we did cover that when we covered the tactics game, right?
Yeah. Malekith has first off, has a normal move of 15 inches.
That's quite a bit.
15 inches, 16 life points. Has a base stamp, has a attack of 6 and a damage of 5. But some of his innates are particularly nasty. First off, he has intangible and flight, so that's already a problem as it is. He also has Aura of Terror, so any enemy units that start a round inside his control zone recover 1 less action point. And there's also stuff like Raven Flight, where he can move any point inside his actual control zone, which does let him escape from combat.
Malekith, the eternal pain in the ass. And controller.
Yep.
Controller.
The Nexus Guardian is level 60, and just has it that while he's not active, he uses his secondary armor, which his armor is 6. And when it comes to Capel, aside from being level 70, he has the summoner rules at level 3. if you have him as a leader, you can summon as many creatures as you want as normal units, ignoring if you want the summoning rules. You're using its Atman to count as its character level.
Huh.
You can also use, while Capel is in game, you can use Gnosis to force a repeat roll of any of your rivals' rolls. And whenever you want, you can consider him a light or a dark unit, which makes sense. His boss fight was basically a game of Ikaruga.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the more interesting boss fights was Druaga, and that applies just as much to his tactics card.
Druaga was fun.
I look at Druaga as the first real test of how well you understand the whole character switching thing, which there's plenty of action games that do character switching, but I can't think of many that doubled down on it as much as Gate of Memories did.
And yet that was pretty much one of the main combat mechanic in the original Gates of Memory.
Mm-hmm. But
you had to get good with not just one but two characters.
Yep. With Druaga, when he's out of life points, he's not removed, but instead enters a resurrection mode, losing his remaining action points, and he won't be able to do anything until the end of the next turn. During this time, he immediately recovers 8 life points, but he doesn't count as a unit. If during resurrection mode he loses all of his life points, he's then removed.
I can't recall if it was Lufia 1 or Lufia 2 that actually had the similar mechanic where you had to fight 2 bosses simultaneously.
I'd have to double check on that front. Also, to make Druaga even worse, any melee attack he's doing ignores 2 points of armor.
That is really powerful.
Yep.
And so this is why I'm glad I pretty much made a very evasion-focused build.
Mm-hmm. And something else I'd be remiss if I didn't point out. When I was covering the game on stream, and hello there, Joe.
Hello!
Hello, Joe.
Dinner ran a little long, but I am here.
Yeah. Right now, we are discussing a bit of the Anima video games. The large focus is going to be on Gate of Memories. I did talk a bit about the fact that some of the bosses from Gate of Memories got their own cards in Tactics as part of the Perfect World Guide.
I mean, nothing wrong with a little self-publicity in other mediums.
But the point is, with Gate of Memories, there seemed to be a more unified voice. It's just unfortunate what happened afterwards. Because even though it did decently, especially decent for a studio of only 6 people, there was the question of whether or not a follow-up would ever get done. And we would eventually see it. The big obstacle was Badland Indie, the publisher, who was fucking around with the money.
And that's putting it mildly.
And then when APS wanted their money back, Badland declared bankruptcy. there was a lot of other shit that happened and it went a long time, and there wasn't a whole lot of reward for what happened. I am vastly skimming it because it involves going into the legal process of a country I've never been in. But during some of that stalling, the game team had made a remaster of Gate of Memories, updating the control setup and having a much better lighting setup, I'd say. Like, the lighting in the 2016 version was a little bit drab compared to Gate of Memories, that is significantly more vibrant
and much easier to follow as well.
Mm-mm. Now, I won't say that it was a perfect transition. There were still issues, and some of the annoying puzzles didn't really get addressed. Also, I'm glad they did New Game Plus. I'm surprised that they never did a...
Yes, I see.
And thank you for the resub, Brian. I'm surprised that there wasn't a Bloody Palace-like mode.
Or a boss rush. That totally would be awesome as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine it's a case of it's still a remaster, so there's only so much they could do. And especially since you're doing 2 campaigns. Gate of Memories, the bulk of it, and the side story, The Nameless Chronicles. Where it's revealed the warrior known as Nameless, the man who holds Death's hand, has had a very screwed up life.
That's putting it mildly.
Like,
To be fair, is there anyone who didn't have a screw-up life in Anima?
not really, but having immortality forced upon you by the first witch as a means of trying to save your life has resulted in him being around for centuries, being hero and villain in a lot of those situations.
You live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually leading to his more disillusioned attitude. But as far as who tried to take out the first witch, it was once again, it was probably Imperium. They never outright say who the assassins were from in the game. But I can hardly think of anybody but Imperium who would be powerful enough to try and take out one of the oldest magic users in existence.
Well, everything is the Imperium's fault anyway.
That is true.
But then we have the more recent game that came along with them going fully independent. In addition, reclaiming the sale rights for the TTRPG from Fantasy Flight, who, in the intervening years, Fantasy Flight was acquired by Asmodee, who is this juggernaut of a board game publisher, and wanted FFG to move more into board games, and split off the RPG side into Edge Entertainment. Which has done a few things, but they haven't done a whole lot. I think the last major thing they did was a 5e version of the Midnight campaign setting from the mid-2000s. Now, unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be doing a print run anytime soon. Which means if somebody wants a physical version of the anime books, be prepared to pay up.
Or see if you could probably find one over at your local thrift store. I was just so lucked out then when I did.
Yeah, sometimes you can luck out. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Jinx, you owe me a soda. But let me see. Song from the Abyss, which is the game that they kickstarted a couple years ago and did well. It's just gotten delayed because of all of these shenanigans. Does feel like a Gate of Memories 2 in the surface level. And just so you guys know what the hell I'm going on about. Let me share with you the link.
I think I backed this when it first got a. I think I backed this, but it's been a bit.
I did back it.
Well, I haven't. The only thing I have is it pretty much is I have it wishlist on my Steam page.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't back anything, unfortunately.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, hey. At least you got to keep the money.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Like, I know Monk's gonna talk about this, but the development got really pushed back for a bunch of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're a team of 6 and a good majority of said 6 that have day jobs.
It's more than that. But something I do find amusing when I look at the descriptions, it talks about a Imperial Zeppelin. I was under the impression the only one who had a Zeppelin was Giovanni.
The bear could still steal one, you know.
I mean, Jesse and James had one.
That's a blimp. No, wait, not even a blimp. It's a hot air balloon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, but one of the big moves that Lucanor Giovanni did was setting up the Zeppelin. And the central idea they have is that the monolith, there was a Solomon monolith that was there that supernatural creatures wanted to steal. Soren, the last Imperial Knight on board, and based on Soren's appearance from as far as the art goes, it's very clear he is a knight of he is, for one, a knight of Abel, and two, probably a knight of one of the heavens.
And of course, you can't have a protagonist without a giant sword.
I mean, especially for an anime game.
Although it is amusing that instead of both characters being mages, we have one who is very much using ki and the other one using magic, which does address a particular issue that got brought up with Gate of Memories, that on some levels the bearer and Ergo felt a bit samey in terms of their kit.
Yeah, they're pretty much just like attack, fireball, jump, dodge, and rinse and repeat.
Oh. Now, granted, by late game there's some distinction. Ergo is a much better, has a lot more stuff at close range, and the bearer has more long range stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even if some of the long range stuff has way too much wind up, like that. Like some of the heaven spells.
Pretty much I like the energy cutter.
Mm-hmm. which it does seem, from what little we've seen of Song of the Abyss, it does look like that is something that's being addressed.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, Gate of Memories definitely felt like it was doing character action, but still wanted to be an action RPG. Song from the Abyss feels like it is leaning far more into that, especially with some of the advancements we've seen in the last few years through things like Nier. They are still I guess they are still doing a advancement tree, though they're not having their advancement tree look like the Arcana Saphira from the TTRPG.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certainly a better looking approach. I know that they've also talked about wanting to do a larger world, as well as connecting things more through a tramway. Because I think the idea with this is that you're on an isolated island instead of a prison separated from existence.
I know the words are in magical Australia.
Just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or magical Alcatraz.
Mm-hmm. Though, when I look at the description of one of the main characters, Soren, I think one of the questions I have is, he's described as a disgraced Heaven Order Knight, who somehow has access to access to a Logia handgun. How the hell does a disgraced knight get access to something like that?
Maybe the thing that he got disgraced by is relatively soon, and he hasn't officially been reprimanded for it yet.
Though, if I had to make a guess, I think a possibility is it was probably that there's probably aside from there being a storage of it, because remember, the Heaven Order is the knightly order that reports directly to the Emperor or Empress.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, wherever, if there's the Empire, then you also have the matter of the Church. And if you have the matter of the Church, you have Tolrauco, who is trying to hoard every single artifact they can get.
And Weizencraft is probably just looking over the whole situations from the shadows as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like in it. Like we've gone over this before in other episodes. Like the artifacts in Anima are really powerful, so it does make sense that people don't want these things just floating around.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since, while new artifacts can be made, the method to do so is not easy and is a highly guarded secret.
I mean, heaven forbid you don't want people to start mass producing weapons of destructions.
One thing we've made clear, the one thing this universe does not want is another War of God.
Which makes sense. You know, it's not like the world nearly was destroyed last time.
Mm-hmm.
No, that never happened.
You know.
Yeah. Also, when I look at the cast that's hinted at for Song from the Abyss, I see the Red Lady.
I mean, for all we know, that could be her, or it could just be someone else with the same mantle.
On the other hand, she is described as a former member of the Order of Nathaniel, which
Jeez,
she was.
I wonder who that could be. I
doubt-
just looked. I just glanced at the photo. It's like, yep, I know who that is.
Well,
Let
again,
me-
free publicity from older games, and especially considering that there's now a remaster available everywhere. If this game were to come out soon-ish, and it might give people a reason to go ahead and purchase a Gates of Memory remaster.
Mhm.
I mean,
Uh,
I think
are
the
you-
remaster's on sale right now too.
Yeah. And A, are you implying that you think the Red Lady is Anne?
Look, I don't want to spoil, but with that being said, my shooting from the hip commentary has been 10 for 10 thus far.
Try to go for the 11.
I mean, you know, I would like to. It's gotten to the point for a lot of my friends. It's like they just look at me. It's like, Biffle, don't say a goddamn thing because you're gonna end up being right.
I feel called out.
Not you. It's
No, I'm
another
saying, I'm
group.
saying I get the exact same fucking thing.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a good problem to have, if you ask me.
But now, I will note one of the things that I am planning for the future is doing, and I'm not sure when I'm going to do this, and it probably won't be for about a month, and it won't be on a Sunday, is doing a reaction to the William SRD video that got me annoyed enough to even start this particular adventure. I'll figure out a date and time for when to do that. But suffice to say, even 3 minutes into the video, I already found stuff that annoyed me.
3 minutes, that's actually quite the record.
Mm-hmm. But that I know the Anime Project Studio YouTube account commented positively on that video, but I don't work for them, so I can say whatever I want.
Fair.
But all in all, and I know, Joe, Hydra, you came into this a bit late, but as we reach the conclusion of this, I would like to know your thoughts on Anima's universe as a whole now that we've done this revisiting over the last, 5 months?
Well, I'll go ahead and lead off. Like, it's no secret that one of the reasons when I came into anime was the art, but as I just delve into the world itself, it's just so meticulously crafted, and it was so well done that, quite frankly, you could expand it to a bunch of different mediums. We got the TTRPG, we got the skirmish game, we got the card game, and we even got video games.
Mm-hmm.
And all that based on the backbone of a well-built world. That's some real talent right there.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what have you thought? I know you came into this a bit late.
Honestly, I just I don't know as much about anime as like the rest of you guys, but I'm very invested. Like, I want to know more, learn more, and I would love to actually play any of the games in order to familiarize myself further with it.
Mm-hmm. And
So I don't know if you mentioned it, but technically you could play the WiiWare game. You just have to play the emulation.
I did. I specifically brought up Dolphin.
And was it earlier today? Sorry, I must have missed that.
Yeah.
What was it about? The very beginning of it?
Mm-hmm. But, what have you thought? Since, aside from me, you're the one who has the most experience with Anima.
It's definitely one of those, not just systems, but games that at first glance you think it's going to be one thing and it turns out to be something else. It's like going into the setting, you kind of think it's at first glance, especially with the art, you think like, oh, this is going to be some like gooner bait thing, but it's actually a pretty well thought out system and setting with plenty of things that for like the game master or the person running it, it's like soon as you get done with this, the big bad in this arc, you can easily move them elsewhere to go after another big bad.
Mm-hmm. And I had said earlier that when it comes to, there have been plenty of people who have tried to do console style RPG or manga in TTRPG form. I'm certainly one of them. But on a certain level that I think a lot of people don't, I feel like Carlos understood the assignment more than others. That particular element of mixing in a bunch of stuff that everybody dismisses as weird and jank is actually the most Japanese part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, you look at different anime, you look at different manga, different video games, and the like. You do see a common thing of playing fast and loose with genre. This is something I've talked about plenty of times just regarding Final Fantasy, and it's no different with other games.
Mhm.
When we talked about Lodos might appear to be European high fantasy, but there are elements there that don't quite fit that bill. In particular, the way magic is treated. And in a lot of fantasy anime, it isn't trying to replicate a particular bit of medievalism. It's just part of a aesthetic that it's building upon along with other things. And with Anima, it would be very easy to look at it as trying to be a Final Fantasy wannabe. But then you see that there's elements of FF, Suikoden, the World of Darkness. There was a lot of elements of Gothic tragedy within the universe. I know for a lot of people, when they look at the stupid huge scale, they're going to think of something like Warhammer, but I don't get that vibe at all. I never did. Especially when you have multiple factions trying to move under the shadows to both cement their own power, but also make sure that a full-scale war doesn't happen again.
Yeah,
Again,
it's much more restraint.
Yeah. The last thing anybody wants is another war of God that wipes out 1/5 of the population.
Again.
And I don't deny that there is a bit of a high floor when it comes to the TTRPG. But I don't think that floor is any higher than its contemporaries. I think it's just a different approach.
The TTRPG can be quite intimidating, but once you just sit down and read the rules, it's actually, this is actually much simpler than I thought.
It is definitely one of those RPGs that if you've only ever played like D20s or similar, you would probably end up having a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have played other TTRPGs, it's not going to be that hard to get your brain around.
Oh yeah.
This is definitely the kind of game you'll want to ease other play by playing other systems first before jumping into anima.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And now, could I put this in? Could I put it in front of some newcomers? I think it depends on their background. If their background is in fantasy anime, yes. If their background is in the more standard forms of high fantasy, maybe. If it's in something like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, honestly, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually would be rather awesome.
I know some people are like, oh, wait, The Witcher is pretty grounded. I'm like, are you sure about that?
It depends on what their first. It depends on what their main interaction with the Witcher IP is.
Just the process of creating the Witcher is already kind of out there.
I will say if they have a background with certain anime, it's going to be a lot easier. If you're dealing with things like Slayers or Orphan or even Fairy Tail, it'll be relatively easy.
Especially Fairy Tail.
Darkness beyond blood that flows. Sorry.
If it's more in the realm of Lodos, that'd be a bit tricky. However, I'd say that the skirmish war game is would be a lot easier to get people into.
And maybe the TCG as well.
It's not a TCG, it's just a card game. The card game might be a bit tricky because of the whole objective-based design isn't how a lot of people view card games. I do remember there was that more traditional card game experiment in the international server, but I wasn't able to take part in that. But the reason I go with tactics is it is, for starters, since you can play it on a traditional board-style grid, as we saw when we covered the rules, that is one thing in its favor.
Didn't they also create a fan-made hex grid variant as well?
No, there was a hex variant in the book. That wasn't fan-made. It was one of the variant rules in the back. But there's the fact that you have despite some of the restrictions, especially once we get to Saga 2, there were some very strong depth when it came to build variety, and resolution is not all that complicated. Like, consider the amount of steps you have to take to do a successful attack as a squad in Warhammer 40K. You know, you've got to roll a bunch of dice and check the 2 wound. Then you have to check toughness to see if you actually do any wounds. Then you have to see if you break their resolve. And I know that sounds simple with 3 different steps, but keep in mind it's a bunch of dice pools that you have to check.
I mean,
it's not entirely fair because skirmish. But the fact that I'd say the best parallel I can think of when it comes to the type of war game accessibility that you have with with Anima Tactics would honestly be BattleTech Alpha Strike.
I don't think I've looked into that one.
Alpha Strike is a streamlined version of the BattleTech rule set. Taking away a lot of the localized damage, a lot of the heavy customization when it comes to units, and allowing for a bigger amount of units instead of just Lance versus Lance, or or Stars if you're a filthy clanner.
Somebody doesn't like the clans.
No. I do not have a high opinion of any society in fiction that utilizes a caste system.
Fair. Especially the clans. Is looking at it at its face value, it is kind of legitimately stupid.
You know, the only thing I don't like about caste systems is spell slots.
Ah. But
Tish.
I won't go into the full thing, but with the clans you have the mixture of a caste system, eugenics, ritualized honor duels, and the same problems with honor that the Klingons have.
They
Yeah.
have it shoved up their butts so deep that they completely miss the point.
Not necessarily.
It's more like they apply honor selectively.
And also the particular code of action is so rigid that it can is not easily adaptable to a changing landscape. But with that said, that does mark the end of this particular series looking at Anima. In the future, I will do a follow-up that is solely focused on reacting to William SRD's video. And sometime in the future, I may be open to doing games of tactics using Tabletop Simulator. The tricky part is going to be setting up a map and setting up armies, because I don't think there's much in the way of pre-gen armies that I can access. There may have been some, because having everyone do full army building might be a little bit of missing the point.
I played 40k, so
I kind of like. I have a Infinity Army. It's the JSA one, and eventually I want to get into Ariadna because but Harley Davidson riding werewolves will always be funny.
Remember when I described Ariadna to Maddie and he said, "Oh, they're Canadians."
well, they're not wrong. I mean, we got the Hells Angels up here.
Oh.
I mean, there's some Canadian. I think there is some Canadian regiments, but there's the French, the Highlanders, the Americans, of course, and then I think there was another one as one of their sub armies.
But that is something for another day. So I do want to thank everyone who decided to put up with this 4-month odyssey. And when we come back here next Sunday, we will finally be tackling not Anima Tactics. What am I saying? We'll finally be talking Final Fantasy Tactics and adapting it into Legend Edition.
Yay!
And when we come back in 2 weeks, we will be returning to Sword World at a start time of after 3 p.m. And we'll be jumping from the 1.0 era back into the 2.0 era. I say back into because we did briefly talk about it in the first couple episodes.
Oh, we had to take the scenic route and start over with the roots of the whole franchise.
Mm. Oh yeah. We already tackled the roots over the last year, so it's finally time to delve whole hog into the core. But that, as I mentioned, is a story for another day. So until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Goodbye.